them to have super roads here in the United States is national defense. To be able to move military hardware and personnel as fast as we could from one point to another. The point I'm about to bring out, people argue with me back and forth. That never happened. Yes, it did. No, it didn't. But the research that I have done, that it was in the first draft of making what we're getting ready to talk about here, the interstate highway system, is that the first American Autobahn, there was supposed to be a section every 10 miles. There was to be 1 mile that was flat, straight, level. No power lines going over the top of it, no bridges, no overpasses. That 1 mile of Autobahn was to be an emergency backup landing for the Air Force in case they couldn't make it back to their base. And people said, no, Fredo, that never happened that way. Well, we copied what we did from the German Autobahn, and that's exactly what they did late in World War II. When we're starting to kick their butt, and the P-51 Mustangs are escorting bombers all the way to Berlin and all the way back with their drop tanks. Once the bombers were clear of Germany, the P-51 pilots had carte blanche. They says, if you got enough fuel to get back and you got enough ammo, go get them. So they would release from the bombers, and being pilots, they want to kill other pilots. They want to rack up their score. They want to be known as an ace. You want to shoot 5 enemy planes. Well, where are the enemy planes? At the enemy airfield. So they go flying down, they go down to the deck, and they start ripping all these German planes that are sitting there in a nice perfect row in the airport. The German says, hey, we don't want that to happen. So they take their airplanes off of their airfields, land on the German Autobahn, and push the planes back there underneath the trees where you can't see them, and you don't think they're there, and you wouldn't think to look there. Well, the Germans did it, and we copied the Autobahn. I'm thinking maybe that was part of the deal, that yes, it was going to be used for the Air Force, not just the Army. It was also to promote raw materials and finished goods moving from one place to another in the United States. You can sit in a restaurant in New York City and have yourself a salad. That lettuce was grown in California. It got to New York on a truck. Paste picante sauce is made in Texas. And you're up in Minnesota watching a Vikings football game, and you're having chips and Delta. That paste picante sauce came from Texas. It got there on a truck. If you own a Harley Davidson motorcycle and you don't actually live in actual Milwaukee, that motorcycle was hauled in a truck. Here in the trucking community, we have this cute little saying. If you bought it, a truck brought it at some time during its manufacturing process or shipping or warehousing, it was on a truck. The other thing that was part of this national network of roads that was a good idea was to increase the activity of civilians being able to move to one end of the country to another. You didn't have to depend on the railroad schedule. You could take your own personal car and go see things. And like the national parks, you can go see Old Faithful. You can go visit Grandma on Christmas down in Florida. You don't have to take a train, or you can have your car there when you get there to go see the sights. That West Point officer that was in the very first disastrous convoy, who was a 5-star general in World War II, became President of the United States. That man's name is Dwight D. Eisenhower. President Eisenhower is the father of the American interstate highway system. He's the reason why we have it today. One of these interstates is named for him, Interstate 290. The I-290 begins just a couple of blocks west of what used to be called the Sears Tower in downtown Chicago and runs out to the west and northwest suburbs. The Dwight D. Eisenhower Memorial Freeway, or what the locals call simply the Ike. Don't know what that references to. Ask your probably your great grandparents, if they're still around. Ask them if they still have their I Like Ike campaign buttons from the 1950s. These are presidential collectibles and worth a tiny little sum of money if you happen to have one. I am holding in my hand a piece of American presidential history. This is an original I Like Ike campaign button from the 1956 re-election campaign. If you or someone you know happens to have a